something here. As we get ready for the NFL draft, and we are going to be there on Thursday and Friday in Detroit, ESPN Bet at Hollywood Casino Greektown. We have thought all along that Caleb Williams, number 1 overall, could be the guy that dictates his future, that maybe he would tell the Chicago Bears, I don't want to play for you. I'm from the D.C. area. I want to go there, right? We've all had this conversation. I don't think any of us believe that that's going to happen right now, right? Did we misread this whole thing? And that label of the Eli Manning guy, so to speak, in this draft, is it actually someone else? Adam Schefter, ESPN NFL insider, of course, joining us every Tuesday, brought to us by BetterHelp, was on with Pat McAfee over on Friday and had this to say about Jayden Daniels with the Commanders.
It's tracking towards Jayden Daniels, which it has been.
Okay.
The signs point to Jayden Daniels, which they do.
Okay.
And the Commanders are going through it after this week when, again, I think it's a situation where from the outset, Jayden Daniels had an interest in being other places. If there's a team that wants him, i.e. a team that used to essentially have a coach that worked him in college, then they have to trade for him. So what do they want to do?
Well, that coach that he's talking about is Antonio Pierce, who was with Jayden Daniels in high school and at Arizona State before was in on Carlin and versus Joe on Friday, and had this to say as he works with the Raiders as well, does some of their broadcasts, and had this to say about Jayden Daniels.
The whole process, he's wanted to be at a different location. He's wanted to be with a different team, just hasn't seen the way that that's actually possible to happen. Now Elliott Wolf opens up the door for a team like the Raiders, who he does want to be a part of, and the Raiders want him to be a part. You don't even worry about Washington. You say, you know what, I trust that if we get to 3, he'll do the rest.
Yep.
That's what you do.
If we get to 3, he'll do the rest. Guys, I think we have a new team that is atop the rankings for juicy. Raiders now are number 1. Could the Raiders do something to go out and get Jayden Daniels, and could Jayden Daniels do something to go out and get the Raiders?
If I'm Washington, even if he doesn't want to be there, if I think he's that good, I'm taking him anyway. I'm going to take him anyway. And I'm going to say, you know what? Maybe you didn't have warm, fuzzy feelings coming out of our visits together during this entire process, but we think you're the future, and let's rebuild that bridge, or let's start building our future together. Because it is hard to find a franchise quarterback. And I'm going to take him anyway, regardless of what he thinks, because that's my job, to take the best player at a position that I need.
No doubt about it, and I'm sure Adam Peters is going to do that. The only question that I have, well, there are several questions that I have, but the biggest one is, did Jayden Daniels have an issue with the Washington Commanders prior to last week when the Commanders brought in the top 4 quarterbacks? Did he have an issue then? But did he have an issue before they brought in, Michael Penix Jr., J.J. McCarthy, Drake May, along with him for that visit? Because if he did, then that's one thing. But if the rift between Jayden Daniels and the Commanders began at that spot, which is what's being reported, in that he's now wondering his options openly with his circle, if that's the case, then you have to question, does this guy have the mental makeup that we're looking for?
Yeah, why would that bother him?
Why is that something that would bother you? Like, the team is doing their due diligence. They're bringing all of these prospects in because they want to make the right decision. If you are really that dude, if you are that alpha, why does it matter whether or not they have a conventional process when it comes to their top 30 visits? If they want to bring in all the quarterbacks and see how they interact with each other from a character standpoint, who cares? Like, if I have that confidence, if I'm the Heisman Trophy winner, if I threw for 50 touchdowns last season, and I know that I'm going to be a change agent for whatever team that takes me, why would that deter you from wanting to go to the Commanders? That's why I have to ask the question, did he have an issue with the Commanders prior to last week and use what happened last week as the excuse as to why he wants to try to control the draft and get to another destination? That's the thing that I need to have answered, because if you're Adam Peters, you want volunteers, not hostages, to quote Mike Tomlin. Like, this pick is too consequential in terms of the program building that you're trying to get started with Dan Quinn, with new ownership in Washington. You don't want somebody that's disgruntled from the jump as soon as you're turning the card to draft a quarterback with the 2nd overall pick.
Can the Raiders get there to take him?
No.
They can't get to 3.
They can't get to 2.
Can they get to 3?
I think they can get to 3.
So getting to 3 means obviously their first-round pick this year, that's 13 overall. I would assume their next 2, they'd have to give up 25 and 26. Right? I mean, if you use the Niners to get to where they got to with the Dolphins from a few years ago, and then I'd assume they have to give up 44 as well. That's their 2nd-round pick.
Yeah.
So now they're at 3. And what Q was saying was basically let Jayden Daniels do the rest, which means throw a fit and say, I'm not going to play for you, Washington. But if Washington does what you just said, Smalls, of I don't care. If you're the guy, what are you going to do, hold out and not play football? So if they can get to 3, this becomes very interesting because then how does he get there? We thought all along the conversation we were going to have right now was going to be about Caleb Williams.
Right.
It's about Jayden Daniels. That's the
draft starts at 2. The draft starts at 2.
And we thought it was 3.
No, we thought it was 1 in terms of we thought
it could have been 1.
We had the conversation. Didn't RG3 even say as such recently? Oh, if you're Caleb Williams, you should ask. Caleb Williams has given 0 indication whatsoever he's not all in for the Chicago Bears.
Well, I was going to say that
to his credit,
there had been speculation that maybe he should do that, but we've never heard reports that was the path that he was going to go down.
So as we sit here today, yes or no on this? Do we believe the Raiders want Jayden Daniels?
Yes.
Do we believe Jayden Daniels wants the Raiders?
Yes.
Now, here's the tough one. Do we believe they will get each other Thursday night?
No.
No, because, and here's the thing, I think there's a path for the Raiders to get to number 3. But I can't imagine a scenario where the package that the Raiders would offer up to the Patriots would be more attractive than the Vikings. And we know the Vikings are big game.
Okay, go there. So the Raiders give up 3 first-rounders over the next 3 years.
Yeah, but the Vikings can give you 3 first-rounders over the next 2.
Right.
Including 11 and 23 in this year's draft. And if you're the New England Patriots and you still want to get a quarterback relatively early on, you could get the 4th best quarterback off the board and pick up, 1, 2 additional first-round draft picks for your trouble? Think about that scenario. Like, if you're saying to Elliott Wolf and Gerard Mayo, hey, I know you guys are just getting started out. You need help everywhere on this roster. You can get a quarterback, a top 4 prospect in this class, but you can also get an additional first-round pick this year and an additional first-round pick in 2025. Does that not seem like that's an attractive deal?
Well, the Raiders, you're right. The Raiders have one thing that I know you have shot down that I think can change this whole thing. Would they be willing to give up Davante Adams?
No.
Would they be willing to give up? Because I'm telling you right now. Well, okay, Smalls, you're right. I understand what you're saying. If I'm not mistaken, the Bears could figure out a way at 9 to work him into their cap. Like, they can just take him into caps. They can rearrange a couple of things and get him into space, right? If you pick up the 9th pick or the Jets at 10, I think they would have to do massive cap machinations. But then you pick up an extra first and you have, let's say, 9 or 10 and 13 and your next 2 first-rounders.
So you would give up a top 10 pick for Davante Adams now?
I'm asking, could that happen?
No, I don't think a team would.
Well, the Jets would. You don't think the Jets would?
Aaron Rodgers would.
You don't think
the Jets would?
Is Aaron? Okay, let me do it this way.
That's a great point. That's a great.
Right, let me do it this way. Is Aaron Rodgers still in charge of the Jets?
Yes.
Then yes. Then the answer is yes.
He would definitely.
Then they would give up 10 to get him if they could work him in financially.
That seems like crazy town, but it seems like crazy town, but it's the New York Jets.
Yes.
Which is why you can't dismiss it.
And let me add one other thing. If we're going to sit here and say there's a lot of smoke around this Raiders Jayden Daniels situation, and maybe the Raiders would do whatever it takes to go get him, whatever it takes means trading a wide receiver. I'm sorry. It just does.
But if you're Antonio Pierce, guys like Max Crosby and Davante Adams are integral in being the middleman between you and your messaging in the locker room. And why would you go out and draft this quarterback and remove an incredible veteran presence that he would have on his offense? I just don't think that makes sense. And in all these hypotheticals about the Raiders somehow finding a way to get to number 3, there's still Washington there that if they have Jayden Daniels graded much higher than any of these other quarterbacks could still take him.
Okay, how about that? Okay, go there for a second. Let's say New England is like, you know what? We're going to bet against the Raiders. We're actually going to short the Raiders. That's a better deal than the Vikings. We'll take their next 3 first-rounders. You get all the way up to 3. Davante Adams to flip-flop picks to Washington. Who says no? I'll give you Davante Adams. You're going to move 1 slot down. You're still going to get Drake May. You're going to have weapons that you like. CeCe, you've already said you think Washington, if things break the right way, could actually win a division this year. Mm-hmm. And now I'll give you Davante Adams. And the answer to your question, Smalls, the reason you would do that is because the quarterback is more influential than any other position if he's right. Right? As influential as Max Crosby is, Jayden Daniels more influential.
So you're saying they can get up to 3. New England decides they're going to short the Raiders as opposed to shorting the Vikings.
Correct. Which makes sense based on the division.
That makes sense.
And then I'll give you Davante to flip-flop.
Yeah, that's a path. The only thing that I would say is that I just don't like it because now Jayden Daniels doesn't have Devontae Adams to work with, but I guess the quarterback is more important than the wide receiver. And if you're going to get this thing started on the right path, you've got to have somebody that can keep pace with Justin Herbert and Patrick Mahomes.
You're hoping he's C.J. Stroud.
You got to have a quarterback that has some horsepower. And I'm sorry, but Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew ain't it. For as much as I love Gardner Minshew as a backup, he
can still be a backup.
He can still be a backup.
He's not the future.
But he ain't helping you win games against Justin Herbert and Patrick Mahomes.
Which is why you short the Raiders and not the Vikings, even though the NFC North is going to be good. I'm telling you, this Raiders Jayden Daniels wrinkle has given us new conversation, I think, for this week leading up to the draft.
But could you imagine the kind of pressure that would be on Jayden Daniels if that happens?
I think more on Antonio Pierce.
No, there would be more pressure. What? No. Because in order for it to happen, it would have to be Jayden Daniels controlling the process.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, he would have to throw a fit,
Think about that. He'd have to throw a fit. In order to do that, there would be all kinds of pressure on that kid going into his rookie year.
And you already start a narrative about yourself, a negative one, if you're Jayden Daniels. So people will be paying attention to you, and a lot of people might be rooting against you in that scenario.
Dan Graziano, ESPN NFL reporter.